2005 LMES season began at Spa in Belgium in April. The pace car arrives at the La Source hairpin and moves off to release a fast and furious pack. And it's Jean-Christophe Bouillon who leads in the downhill to the Eau Rouge. And they're off and running for 1,000 kilometers, 144 laps or 6 hours racing. As of the first meters of the race, Stefano Otelli attacks in the comb, and the Audi is already in third place. A little further back, the Monegasque seizes the second position from Jan Magnussen in a Lister. In the lead, Bouillon sets a torrid pace. The Pescarolo, starting from pole, has the intention of leading the dance and imposing the tempo. Track conditions change from lap to lap. The slightest variation of trajectory is dangerous, sometimes without gravity, and other times, on the other hand, with more expensive consequences. Peter Kutermann once again loses control of his Ferrari and smashes into the Zytek of Kurosawa. The accidents of an extreme violence, and a few moments later the worst is avoided when Thomas Enger at the same place crashes his Ferrari along with the Porsche of Barazzi. The safety car is immediately sent onto the track. The safety rails have been destroyed and the race director goes out in person to note the damage and to order the replacement of the safety fences. The safety car releases the pack. Bouillon is still leading, followed 25 seconds behind by John Nielsen in the official Zytek. Close to a lap further back, it's Stefano Otelli on board the French Audi. It's around mid-race that Zytek number 15 makes its appearance at the top of the general standings. At the wheel since the start, the highly experienced John Nielsen doesn't make the slightest driving error and passes over a car in perfect condition to his Japanese teammate Shimoda, who preserves the car without too much difficulty among the forward stations. A little further back, Otelli continues attacking an Audi that's obviously badly affected by the reduced air intake imposed by the new regulations. Stefan comes back up on the Pescarolo of Comas, but has to take risks to remain within contact, and once again is hit by a GT. This time it's a Maranello Ferrari driven by the Russian Fomenko. The Audi loses 20 good seconds before extracting itself from the situation and the contact with Eric Comas. Decidedly, even if it's no longer the car to be beaten, the Audi remains omnipresent in endurance. A little later, during the fifth salvo of refuelings, Otelli finds himself in the lead with Shimoda hot on his heels. The two boys will come to blows several laps before Stefan takes his turn to head into the pits. After a marathon 4-hour stint, Stefan Otelli passes the wheel to Jean-Marc Gounon. In GT1, Scuderia Italia BMS is having mixed fortunes, with first of all Bartien, who goes straight off at La Source before setting back out again. On the other hand, the other car of the team is leading the category and is 10th overall. The Italian team is champion in title of FIA GT, and having won everything, the title and the 24 hours of Spa in this category, they're attacking the LMES this year with, of course, the ambition of taking the crown in GT1. For the moment, it has to be said they're off to a promising start, and all the more so as the Ferrari of Bushu and the Russians Fomenko and Vasilyev is a long way behind and won't be able to get back up to pace. In GT2, the Porsches are in difficulty on this rain-soaked track, and consequently a TVR leads the category. David has Goliath on the ropes. For TVR, everything's running like a dream. With two cars on the track, hopes are high. Refueling for the leader, Shimoda, who brings back to the pits a Zytek in perfect state. He yields his place to Kasper Elgaard. Certain scandalmongers insinuate that Kasper is slower than his teammate. Others undoubtedly hope to be able to benefit from this to make up their lost time. Very quickly, the Dane will show his colours, running lap times similar to those of his teammates. The Zytek's in orbit with a view to the finish, and one gets the impression that there's not much that could stop it. But endurance remains endurance, and before celebrating a victory, it's essential to cross the finish line, which will not be the case for the Delara of Roll Centre, which left the track in Blanchiment and causes a new interruption to the race by the safety car. Still behind the safety car, Jean-Marc Gounon makes a beginner's error. While heating his tyres behind the safety car, he sends his Audi into the Formula One pit wall. Just 50 minutes from the finish, there's no point trying to repair the car, and the race is over for the French Audi. The interruption of the safety car lasts for 40 minutes, and when the green flag comes out, there's 3/4 of an hour's racing left to run. Isolated in second position, the Pescarolo Judd doesn't have a real rival anymore. Manu Collard comes in for a final pit stop without any problems. He's too far from the leading Zytek to hope to come up and hassle him. For the Pescarolo, new rain tyres are mounted as a safety precaution. At the end of 6 hours racing, the TVR Tuscans sound a resounding double-header in GT2 in front of the Porsche of Sekel Motorsport. In a last-ditch struggle, Christophe Bouchou will try to come back up on the Ferrari of the Scuderia Italia, but in vain, as the Reds win their very first race in LMES. Better still, BMS drivers flood the podium in GT1. Victory goes to Cressoni, Ramos and Golan, with third place for Pescatori, Bartian and Seeler. Victory in LMP2 goes to the Lola of the team Chamberlain. A victory due to regularity. The car and its drivers didn't drop their guard during the entire race. Lastly, the scratch victory goes to the Zytek number 15, a perfect race from Elgaard, Shimoda and Nielsen. Up against the Audi and very competitive Courageous, no one really expected the Zytek to be first past the checkered flag for this first race of the season. The Zytek wins the race at Spa with a full laps lead on the Judd-powered Pescarolo. As of free practice, the Pescarolo team had on paper been the team to beat, but unfortunately didn't quite manage it. Victory thus to the Zytek, second Pescarolo and third the Delara Judd of Roll Centre Racing. In LMP2 victory goes to the Chamberlain Lola, and in GT2 the TVR Tuscan was 8th overall. In pole position for this second event of the season, the winner of the race in Spa, Shimoda, takes the start. It's Shimoda who will set the pace of the other competitors. Drivers are not permitted to overtake before passing the starting line. And the Japanese driver runs at an abnormally slow speed, surprising the majority of the drivers. Shimoda finally decides to increase power, and the race is on. As of the first corner, the Zytek takes the lead, while Manu Collard in the Pescarolo Judd seizes second position. Manassian is back in third place. A little further on, Manu Collard is on the heels of Hayanari Shimoda. At the exit to the parabolic, Collard's fixed in the slipstream of Shimoda and then will seize command of the race. During several laps, the Japanese driver clings behind the Frenchman as they lap tail enders. They're going to play yo-yo, but Shimoda's not able to carry off a real attack. Until the first refueling stop, Collard and Shimoda keep in close quarters. Pescarolo loses first place, time to fill the tank. Then it's the turn of Shimoda to head for the pits to fill up, coming back out in second place behind Collard. Big fright for Vincent Voss. In full flight for first place of LMP2, the Belgian catches up with tail-enders in their own battle. In the action, one of the cars sends a plastic part onto the trajectory of the Proto. Difficult to avoid. Still leading, the Pescarolo number 17 is out in the open. Jean-Christophe Bouillon is still at the wheel and the car is running like a clock. One can't say the same for the Promec Judd of Alex Caffey. Since the beginning of the weekend, he's been having multiple problems. In the race, it's one gravel trap, then another. And finally, an incredible image. At the wheel, Michele Serafini, who knows the park of Monza like the back of his hand, decides to get out of the gravel trap in another unusual fashion. And since we're talking about problems, it's now the car in second position, which is under the weather. The Zytek remains in the pits for a long moment. It's a major problem, and second place is lost. Jamie Campbell-Walter replaces Nicholas Manassian at the wheel of the DBA number 7. The British driver attacks as hard as he can and shortens a good deal of his gap behind Pescarolo. It's enough for the DBA to be in the lead during the pit stops by the leaders. Nothing too bothersome for the Pescarolo boys, who manage the situation without any problems. The changes of drivers, tyres and refueling are organised perfectly. Currently running fourth, the only woman engaged in this round of the LMES. Vanina X, already on the podium at Spa, is on the way to doing just as well here, in company of her teammates from Roll Centre Racing, João Barbosa and Martin Short. In third place, the Zytek of the Yotta team, also on the way to an excellent result. In second position, and still with a strategy to offset stints compared to the leaders, it's the DBA of Manassian and Campbell-Walter. The Franco-British duo doesn't have the intention of throwing in their hand, putting in time similar to those of the leading Pescarolo, and even appreciably faster than those of the French car. It's a cold shower for the Lamborghini team. Not far off the end of the race, car number 64 blows its engine, blowing by the same token all hopes of Peter Cox and Norman Simon. However, at Lambo, they can still be satisfied with this Italian weekend. The car was leading the pack for its only apparition this year in the series. Almost at the same time, the Ferrari BMS number 52 blows a front left tyre and loses the first place in GT1. Deception for the Italian team, quickly attenuated by the fact that it's the sister car that seizes the command. More serious this time, it's now the car running second overall back into the pits with problems. The DBA is putting out some very worrying smoke, and Manassian is forced to give up the fight for victory. Number 7 remains glued to the pits for a long moment, too long a moment, allowing Zytek number 9 of the Team Yotta to take the second place overall. Worse still, the 8 laps lead which the DBA had on Roll Centre melt like snow in the sun, and Vanina X climbs to the provisional podium. To make it all the more interesting, it's now that the rain makes its appearance over Monza. A fine rain which in any case does not flood the track, and on the other hand makes it very slippery. No one changes tyres as there's only a little less than 15 laps to be completed, but it's better to remain careful. Lap times increase by about 10 seconds. It's the 993 RSR of Pompidou and Lieb that dominates in GT2. In GT1, after a victory at Spa, Scuderia BMS double their chances at Monza, where they're at home, but this time it's the other car that dominates, that of Barty and Golan and of the Swiss driver Tony Sieler. In LMP2, for his second race in a prototype car, Vincent Voss takes victory in the company of Ogier and Gosselin, his teammates for the weekend. For Team Belmondo, this success with the Ford-powered Courage is a first. For the second time of the year in 2 races, Roll Center finishes on the podium, proof that regularity still pays in endurance. It's also important to salute the drivers Martin Short, Joel Barbosa, and of course the only woman in the race, Vanina X. Second place of these 1,000 kilometers of Monza, the Zytek of Team Yota, driven by Sam Hignett, John Stack and Haruki Kurosawa. The Pescarolo team finishes this race with a victory, the first of this hybrid car. After the second place is taken at Spa, then in Le Mans, this result was much awaited in Henri's team. Henri, who regrets just one thing, not to have fought until the end against the DBA of Manassian and Campbell-Walter, even in the rain. Collard and Bouillon happy to take the top step of the podium. It's also worth mentioning that here in Monza, the Oreca Audi forfeited, preferring to stay home. The rain makes its appearance just before the start of this third round of the season. No practice sessions were run on the wet track, and consequently all the setups have to be rethought and the drivers launch out into the unknown. On the starting grid in pole position, Nicolas Manassian, who plans to be first to the checkered flag this time. When the cars are released, it's Jean-Christophe Bouillon who takes the best start. At the end of the straight, the Pescarolo slips inside and seizes the first place, just behind Manassian's second. In third place, Tom Chilton in the Zytek 04S, and the Audi of Team Oreca in the hands of Alan McNeish. The track's extremely tricky, and Chilton's the first to be caught out. A little further on, it's Bouillon who puts a foot wrong. The Pescarolo slips back from the first to the fourth position. In LMP2, the Lola MG of Erdos is leading. Better still, they're running fourth overall, with regular fast laps in almost zero visibility. When the DBA comes in for its first stop, the Audi, of course, takes the lead of the race. Things get back to normal when the Audi takes its turn to stop. The pace car slows the cars for some time in these atrocious conditions, and when the cars are finally released in full re-acceleration, the Lola McLaren loses control and smashes into the wall. The car's immobilized and the safety car takes back out to the track. Just behind, but several laps back all the same, we now find Vanina X, once more with her accomplices Barbosa and Short. The Belgian driver carries out a fantastic race and aims for a new podium, the third in as many races. For their second race in LMES, the Lister Storm also has a problem. Jens Moller is into a gravel trap and loses fourth place, which seemed promised to him, and the safety car comes back out. The end of the race in the dark is quite simply palpitating. There remains less than 1 hour to be run, and the Audi, driven by Alan McNeish, pushes its way back up on the DBA of Campbell Walter, who at halfway point in the race had taken the wheel from Manassian. To the gleam of the headlights and the play of getting round the tail enders, the Scot is quick to make up time. The two cars are separated by only a few seconds. Less than 1 hour from the finish at the end of the straight, Alan McNeish offers himself the first place to the detriment of Jamie Campbell-Walter. The driver of the DBA is having to put up with a clutch problem. At DBA, one more refueling stop's needed, a flash stop to fill up and head straight back out. Stefan Ortelli takes the last stint in the Audi, and as he gets the feel for the conditions, the Monegasque works on building the gap. Stefan even marks up the best lap in the race on the 141st of 155 laps. With McNeish, he had won the Le Mans 24-hour race in a Porsche GT1. Here, the reformed duet do a fantastic job to take the victory that the Team Oreca had been so much hoping for. Six seconds and 569 thousandths. That's the lead of the Audi at the finish line after 6 hours of racing. And Hugues de Schornack is over the moon. Of course, at creation, there's good reason to be disappointed. In LMP2 for the second consecutive time, Vos, OJ and Gosselin go to the highest step ahead of Vergers, Barazzi and Bennett, and the Lola of Erdos and Newton. The Belmondo team drivers go to the top of the class in LMP2. In GT1, the Manx team wins its first victory of the season with Giannis Pergel and Peter Cox. Finally, in GT2, Lieb and Pompidou make another successful hold-up, as was the case in Monza. As usual, it's a rolling start for the Nurburgring 1,000 kilometers, and Manassian's in pole. Manassian's off to a good start, but Collard's up with him. In the first corner, the DBA driver resists and retains his first position. A very bad start, on the other hand, for Alan McNeish. He finds himself running fifth, while Cochet seizes third place and Erdos is running fourth. Starting last, having been disqualified in practice, Hayanari Shimoda lets the powder do the talking from the first meters of the race. The Japanese driver, upset by his sanction, starts a vertiginous comeback, putting in a record lap. He's back up among the leaders, and in 13th lap he's already running 7th. In the leading posts, Manu Collard is still very threatening for his compatriot Nicolas Manassian. The Pescarolo is faster than the DBA, and Collard slips inside and seizes the lead. But what's worrying in all this is on the left rear side of the car, part of the car's extractor is moving abnormally, and with the vibrations it's likely to come loose from the car. One minute 46.485, that's the time for Shimoda, while the others are putting in 1:49 or 1:50. The Japanese driver is now fourth, and we're not even an hour into the race. But too concentrated on the getting around the tail enders, Hayanari sees a yellow flag too late. Consequently, he's hit with a stop and go. When he comes back out of the pits, the Zytek's only lost one place, that Shimoda quickly makes up again on Barbosa. In the Zytek camp, things are looking up. A pit stop for the leader, Manu Collard, who should in theory simply refuel. But the problem mentioned a few moments ago has to be resolved. The mechanics work on the rear end of the car. The operation takes nearly a minute, and the Pescarolo comes back out in third position. All the leaders are now coming in to refuel. An endurance race is also won in the pits. The proverb is well known, and the boys from Arica benefit from the stop to push their car into first place ahead of the DBA of Manassian. The last of the leading cars to come into the pits is the Zytek of Shimoda. Consequently, car 15 is for a moment anyway in the lead. We're an hour into the race and Shimoda has passed all his adversaries. The Zytek is of course eventually forced to come into the pits to refuel and takes back out to the track in fourth position. Handicapped by recurring gearbox problems, Primat undoubtedly loses attention and closes the trajectory on Collard, who is at the point of overtaking. The two cars are off in a spin. The big battle of the moment is in GT1. Difficult to make a forecast after only a third of the race between the Maranellos of Scuderia BMS, that of the Menx team, or the Converse car of Bushu. The positions change with each stint. To this we have to add an Aston Martin. The English is sowing disorder amongst the herd of prancing horses. Darren Turner is Imperial, and it has to be added that his teammate Robert Bell is debuting at the Nurburgring and at driving a GT. At the beginning of the race, Tommy Erdos is once again exemplary, but definitely RML is out of luck since their victory in the historic class at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. While dominating in LMP2, the Brazilian doesn't manage to make it back out from the pits after a standard pit stop. The problem is serious. Consequently, it's the Ford Courage of Belmondo Racing, driven by Claret, which takes the lead in the category. When Alan McNeish leaves the seat of the Audi to his co-driver Stefan Ortelli, he's still virtual leader, but the operation takes a few seconds more than envisaged, enough for the Monegasque to get out of the pit lane in second position. Shimoda also finishes his first stint. The Japanese driver is simply the hero of the early part of the race. It's now his young teammate Tom Chilton, who's running in third position in the Zytek. We're on board the Porsche of Pompidou. Look to the right of the screen. He passes under the nose of the Ferrari of Rosa and seizes first place in GT2. The operation goes to the benefit of the Franco-German duo, because in second position we now find the astonishing Spijker of Krevels and Bleekemolen. The Dutch drivers make a success of a splendid race here in the Nürburgring and offer the brand its best result in competition. The Porsche of Gropi, Moccia and Kamatias fails in third place. The cards are thus dealt in LMGT2. Pompidou and Lieb win their third race in a row. They are thus 2005 champions in the LMGT2 category of the Le Mans Endurance Series. In GT1, for their second appearance in LMES, the Aston Martin DBR9 of the Converse team, driven by Bell and Turner, is victorious, and for the first time of the year the Maranellos are beaten. At the end of this Nurburgring race, Didier Thys and Eric van der Poel take the LMP2 category. Shimoda, who's taken the wheel back from Chilton for the final stint, is running very, very hot. The gap back to the Zytecs now about 20 seconds from second place, and the car's lapping more quickly than the two cars in the lead. Shimoda's running wild. He screams up on Manassian and immediately goes on the attack. But in hard braking, he misses the ideal trajectory. Manassian takes back his position, but not for long. A lap later in the same place, and this time he gets past. Shimoda is second, and McNeish doesn't have it easy. 15 minutes left to race, and the Zytec is breathing down the neck of the Audi. And he's done it. Hayanara Shimoda has taken back the place which was his at the time of qualifying before being relegated. McNeish will not see the Zytec anymore before taking the checkered flag. This fantastic victory allows the Zytec team and Hayanari Shimoda to take the lead of the championship. Pescarolo limit the damage by finishing fourth. They're thus running second in the championship ahead of Rollsetter, who came in fifth at Nurburgring. Creation Autosportif and the DBA, as well as Audi Oreca, remain in the race for the title. Istanbul, the fifth and last event of the season, and again it's raining. Collard leads the pack in the warm-up, and when the lights turn to green, he preserves the advantage. The Pescarolo thus leads through the first corner of the Istanbul circuit with, breathing down his neck, the young Tom Chilton on board the Zytec. After only a few laps, Nicolas Manassian in his DBA Judd puts pressure on Chilton. The Frenchman goes for the attack and gets through. Barbosa's running hot and puts pressure on McNeish, but finally the battle will take place in the pits, and the Dallara comes in first. Yes, Mr. Barbosa, concrete is slippery when wet. It's not only the concrete that's slippery, the track is also extremely tricky. Emmanuel Collard learns this the hard way. Very fortunately, his spin is without gravity for the car. On the other hand, following this small off-road excursion, Manu loses invaluable time, and Manassian is now just 12 seconds off. With refueling, the leading positions change, and Manassian takes the number one place. At Creation, they decide to leave the French driver at the wheel with the same tyres. The DBA of the Creation team is firmly installed in first place. Behind, in the midst of the tail-enders, confusion reigns, and very quickly Ortelli rises to second place ahead of Bouillon and Chilton. After the pit stops in P2, it's the Chamberlain Lola, marvellously driven by Guy Smith, which seizes first place to the detriment of Tommy Erdos. We then find the surprising courage AER of the duo of Vergers and Barazzi. After a short interruption by the pace car, Ortelli and Bouillon find themselves wheel to wheel and start an incredible duel. Finally, it's Jean-Christophe Bouillon who will get the upper hand. Ortelli is then attacked by Sam Hancock. The Zytek of the Yotta team has never been driven this well since the beginning of the season. Hancock is having a real party in the rain. He passes Ortelli and moves into third place. Better still, the British driver's lapping more quickly than Bouillon at this point. Some laps later, Hancock seizes the second place. A few moments later, the two cars come simultaneously into the pits. Collard again takes the wheel from Bouillon, while Hancock yields his place to Fisken. The Pesca sets back out in front of the Yotta. Emmanuel Collard sets back out with a real vengeance. Very quickly, he comes back up onto the Oreca Audi. During this salvo of refuelings, McNeish took the wheel again, but also the second place. Decidedly, this race in Istanbul is full of comebacks, and it's far from being over yet. If you like watching overtaking, here's another one. Collard again takes second place, and Asian, however, still has a very good lead over the Courage. Then suddenly, the DBA Judd clearly slows down. And Asian loses his footing. The French driver's unable to keep up the pace which he had from the start. Collard's coming back up now like a rocket. The connection happens very quickly, and it's without any difficulty at all that the Pescarolo gets around the failing DBA. Manu Collard's leading the 1,000 kilometers of Istanbul. In the leading positions, we take the same as before and start a new episode in the Audi versus Pescarolo fight. The two cars then return to the pits for a change of drivers. Not much further on, Bouillon moves up and then takes command again. Number 39 loses its leading position to the benefit of the MG Lola of Erdos and Newton. Victory goes out the door, but not the title, because if they can conserve second place, Chamberlain and Gareth Evans are champions in LMP2. In GT2, it's also very hot between the Ferraris. Car 99 of GPC has taken command again, but Luca Drudi goes for a spin in the last lap. Andrew Kirkcaldy eats his rival alive. Medina of Scuderia Ecos takes the lead and will stay there. The honour is saved and Ferrari is victorious at least one time in LMES this season in GT2. The Ferrari Modenas thus succeed in a double header in Istanbul ahead of the Felbermayr family. The fourth position goes to Thierry, Nielsen and Errett, also in a Porsche. The championship table tips for the Porsche of Lieb and Pompidou, who are also champions since the Nurburgring thanks to their numerous victories. Second place goes to the Scuderia Ecos and Kinshin Kirkcaldy. Third step in the championship goes to the trio of Gropi, Camatias and Mocchia in the Porsche of Orlando Motorsport. The final round of the season in GT1 goes to a Ferrari. No surprises there. It's car number 51 of the Scuderia BMS, and the team makes a perfect double-header, pocketing the title at the same time for Batian, Pescatori and Sila. The championship, Sila, Pescatori and Batian thus grab the title, and Pip, thanks to the number of wins, their teammate Matteo Cressoni. Third place to Bushu and Vasiliev in the Maranello of the Converse team. Three podiums, but no victories. That's the way it went for Erdos and Newton, until today anyway, in LMES. In Istanbul, they sign a superb victory. The title escapes them by a whisker because the Lola Chamberlain finally finishes second, just enough to snatch the crown. In the Drivers' Championship, Gareth Evans is alone at the top of the table in the category. The general standings of LMP2, Gareth Evan takes the crown in the Chamberlain ahead of Erdos and Newton in the Team RML car. We then find Gosselin and Voss in the Courage of Belmondo Racing. Shimoda was the best place to become champion at the end of this final race, but luck didn't come his way. With his teammates Chilton and Elgard, Hayanari was not able to finish in the top three, having to be content with fourth place in the end. Manassian and Campbell-Walter have run a superb season and have put spice into all the races, but were never able to take their DBA to the highest step on the podium. It's a shame. They certainly deserved at least one win this year, and here their podium with Jean-Denis Delatraz is of course a real letdown. It was the war to finish all wars for the Audi R8. This exceptional car with an extraordinary prize list finished second. One thing's sure, Ortelli, but especially McNeish, who'd lived a veritable love story with the car, would have appreciated a win here. But this weekend, the Pescarolo of Collard and Bouillon was just too good. Henri can be proud of his protégés, who've given him his first prototype title as a team manager. Collard and Bouillon are victorious with 1 minute and 9 seconds lead on Ortelli and McNeish. Manassian, Campbell-Walter and Delatraz are finally third, 2 laps further back. Fourth place goes to Shimoda, Chilton and Elgard. The final championship table sees the title going to Collard and Bouillon in the Pescarolo, ahead of Shimoda in the Zytek. Third place for Ortelli and McNeish in the Audi Oreca, fourth for Nieneriks and Martin Short. So there you have it. It's here that the 2005 season comes to an end. For its second year of existence, the series has gained in maturity and credibility. The 2005 LMES Championship thus draws to a close. For the next season, there will be a name change, as from the first race, the series will simply be known as the Le Mans Series. Easier to say, and no doubt even more mature and exciting than this year.